Hey, it is the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Beat joined by the one, the only, Rudy Gamble. How's it going over there, Rudy?
Going okay, man. All good. It's under 90 degrees today, I think, here. So yeah, it's great. I
that's a
got
good start.
I
You
got
feel like
corduroys on. You can't see them, but
it feels like by the time we get to week one, you should be under 90 degrees at least a couple
it
times for the
it.
year.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's four great things about this time of year. A- NFL football's about to start. College football's about to start. The kids go back to school, and the weather gets under 100 degrees. I mean, how much, you know? So you can't really ask for much more than that.
And September call-ups, although that means a lot less now than it used to.
Yeah, September baseball. It's September baseball is not as garbagey as it was. Where you get
It's
guys
not.
like, well, he's injured, but we've got a 400-man roster, so we just won't. He's either starting tomorrow or 3 weeks from now,
Yeah, I know you and I led the charge for
August
no
30th.
September head-to-head leagues, at least in baseball, because it's just garbage. Even in Roto, it felt like you were winning on the backs of like terrible lineups just being played, and you're streaming against bad lineups rather than
Yeah,
actually good pitchers. But now it's different. But that's a different sport, Rudy. Let's
right,
not get
right.
off topic. We're here to talk wide receivers, go over our thoughts on the position, and then we'll get into our differences. I'll make the announcement here first off the top. I am trying to get the podcast league back together. It is a slow auction. We run the slow auction on Couch Managers. We run the league on Fantrax. Fantrax always takes care of us and gives us all the customization and everything. So I'm trying to fill that league. I still need some people because slow auction takes some time. So we got to get that started. If you're interested, find me at RazBeaton on Twitter. But let's jump into wide receivers. How do you approach the wide receiver position in drafts? Is it pretty much the same way you approach running back? Is it a little different in priority, or just how do you go about determining, how do you go about drafting wide receivers?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I like to draft a lot of wide receivers and early. I think the difference versus running backs is that let's just say in a 12 team league, like it's hard to hit on anything after the first 10 rounds. So, I want to get a bunch in the first 10, and then take more shots. So I'll have more wide receivers than running backs for like easily in the rounds 5 to 10, as on my roster. And then I'm taking more shots on the running backs because it's such a big a guy who's like nothing goes to something really quickly in running backs. It just doesn't happen as much at wide receivers, but I'll still take some shots at wide receivers because but then you're looking at it's like different profiles you're looking at or different contingencies. Is there offenses you really want to get into, or that's when I'll start thinking about like um, how much of the target share I think is solidified versus completely open. Like last year, a guy like Nico Collins was on like my Scott Fishbowl team because I'm like, I don't know what Houston is. And I don't know what Nico Collins is, but there's seemingly an opportunity. Or something like a Jaden Reed last year would have been one like, okay, this is still a pretty open room. And a young player, give it a shot. So that's so I like to have a lot of wide receivers, and I don't know. It'd be interesting. Like, what archetypes do you like for wide receivers? I feel like there's like a few different types. Obviously, we like the ones that are like hyper efficient and get extreme amounts of targets and are the number one option in the red zone.
Yeah, those are
But
the guys that we don't really have to talk about much. That's the elite
right,
tier. I think once we get past that, I tend to like playmakers, so guys that can take a 10-yard screen and house it, that kind of thing. But I do mix that with just some consistency. So it kind of depends on where in that elite tier I land. Like if I have Tyreek Hill, then I'm probably a little bit more likely to take a little bit more safety. Whereas if in the back end of the top, tier of receivers, I may go up for, somebody with a little bit more upside, like like a Debo, like an Olave, somebody you can really pop versus Amari Cooper, somebody I own all the time because he's undervalued. But that has to do with his value more than, the fact that I generally think he has massive upside. Like he's just going to be really good.
No, I see it. Yeah, I tend to go more if I had to, if you have to pick because you don't have the everything players there,
Right.
guys that I feel are a good shot for like high target shares and are going to play a lot. I mean, right? So I mean, it's hard to get. So like these guys can get on the field and have a chance at kind of have a skill at basically just getting targets. So that doesn't always go with playmaking for me, so yeah, let's say like a guy like Chris Godwin might be a guy like I like on teams because it's like this guy's got targets, he gets open, I don't have to worry about that. Versus the extreme flip side would be like someone like Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
So if you look at if you say like the polar opposites of that, let's just say Puka last year in terms of extreme targets and like the Gabe Davis who could spike on games. In a best ball is different in like setting weekly, man. I just want like that high floor. And I just, because I don't have a good feel for ceiling, I've generally found that like the guys that like look amazing on efficiency always come down the next year. And the guys that looked awful generally stay awful. Actually, it's the guy, like once a wide receiver shows that they're pretty awful, like they're probably too old or never good enough and too slow. But the guys that are like kind of mediocre, like that, the difference between 7, 8, 9 yards per target, it's like a little noise in there year to year. Just takes one or two crazy break a tackle, go for 80 yards, and that stuff could has a bigger role. So, but the algo handles all that stuff.
Yeah, so I definitely think there's some differences in our ranks, and as you mentioned that, obviously I'm not looking at targets and receptions and share. But yes, if you have to go one way or the other, I'm definitely more of the okay. Who do I think can become one of the top guys, or who's going to break the play and get me? And a lot of what I do is more visual. So I'm watching them play. I'm going back and watching some games. I used to watch every single game. I can't say that I watch every single game anymore. I've realized that there are some games just not worth watching, and I don't put myself through those. But I still try and watch every game that I feel like has some importance.
You get that all 22.
So I base it off of that, and that's not always right though. Like Puka Nacua, I would not have guessed he could do what he could have done. Except that he did look good. Like he did look good in preseason. But then you just chalk that up to nobody's playing, or like the offense is vanilla, the number one's not out there. Like there's all these ways you can write off somebody looking good in preseason.
Yeah, and I've got a big TV in the living room, and I have it broken into 16 games, and I just look at the dots move. And then like, oh, look at that dot's great. Why do they throw it to that dot? Oh, it's the Giant game. Oh wait, it's just in field. Why is that dot scrambling around and then not throwing it to the three open guys? Oh.
It just runs back behind its own line for some reason. The ball never moves. I don't get it. But let's jump into our differences here, Rudy. As I mentioned, there's going to be a lot in here, and I did notice there's a bunch of guys that we have like 5 to 8 spots apart, and I think that has to do with how we rank, and also within wide receiver. Like I feel like the groupings are bigger. Maybe not the tiers when you start breaking it down into ranking tiers, but the groupings of guys are bigger. Right. So you're like, okay, here's all the wide receiver twos that have a lot of talent. Here's the wide receiver twos who don't have a lot of talent. Here's the wide receiver threes with talent. Like, here's the wide receiver threes without talent. And those are big groups. And how you move within those groups just kind of varies. But let's start at the top. CeeDee Lamb, number one. Consensus number one. You have him at 1. I have him down at 5, still in the elite tier. Obviously, I'm worried about the fact that there's not anybody else there. There wasn't really anybody last year either, but just more and more, I feel like teams are going to focus on that. And, the track record of going back-to-back number one, not exactly great. As much as I can, I try to avoid that. You can't always do it. Like when CMC runs away and beats everybody 100 points, you just kind of have to acknowledge that. But, wide receiver changes so much year to year.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be one where if you gave me the field versus CeeDee Lamb for being the PPR one or any metric one, I would take the field. But yeah, I think Lamb has shown that he could support extreme levels of targets. So was he at 180 last year? So I feel like, there's like a tier where it's like, oh my God, they really threw it to him a ton. The Devontae Adams peak era level.
Even still Devontae Adams.
I know. He's like, right. So 180 targets at 9.7 yards per target is fantastic. So, I get it. I think it's fair nitpick. I don't see it as an overwhelming number one, but I definitely have him like a point or two per game ahead of the others. I think he just gives you everything. And the lack, I don't think if they could have guarded him last year, they would have. I'm with you. They don't have a lot of wide receiver talent on that team. Ferguson's a decent. That's a tight end there. Yeah, he's okay. No one's going to respect that run game this year.
No, not at all.
No, so it just seems like it basically credible quarterback, a team that's likely to throw a lot, a guy who's going to get a lot of targets. But the difference between him and some of the other guys, maybe in the top 5, not pretending it's huge.
Yeah, and I will say the fact that he was not showing up for practices, that always hangs when I'm thinking of within a tier. And so, when we're talking about guys where, the difference isn't that big among the talent, him missing some camp is definitely weighing into my ranking as well.
It's definitely been a weird year in that. I think 3 of my top 10 qualify for that. Because you have the same issues with Chase and Ayuk, with at least Lamb and Chase feeling very, very performative. Like if those guys somehow got traded or missed the year, that feels shocking. Where Ayuk, I don't know. The second, if he's traded any day now, I wouldn't be surprised. If it's basically he suits up for week 1, I'm not. There's nothing to be surprised with Ayuk. Only I feel because that's the one team that could be like, yeah, we're going to move off of you. Where Dallas is just the worst negotiators. The worst. They always they'd rather pay like $1.10 tomorrow than $1 today.
Yeah.
They got stuck with Prescott like that. They got stuck with Zeke. Zeke forced their hand and they blinked. And the funny thing is, like, Lamb is the last guy Parsons would be the last guy, but Lamb would be the second to last guy. At least he's elite. And he projects as well as anyone for the next couple years. You want to say Jefferson, certainly not gonna, no qualms there. But if you're gonna pay up, that's fine to pay up for him. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he hasn't earned it, but yeah, Dallas loves letting people have career seasons and having to pay him on the back of that. It's not exactly the ideal model for it, but
No.
they keep doing it. I will say I have Chase at 2, so I know that there's a little double talk there, but Chase and Burrow have been together for so long. I feel like that matters so little in that
Yeah.
particular one. And again, they're elite, so they're
Yeah.
all in the same tier. You can nitpick within my top, I would say 6 receivers, and I don't really care how you want to go in any order.
Right. I mean, I feel like, yeah, Chase is definitely the WR1 there. Higgins is a nice WR2. And that team passes a lot. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they do.
so that's like a very good. So there's a lot of comparisons there. I mean, I'm trying to see if I will
I
say
mean,
if
their
there's,
pass percentage is number one. Like
yeah, I'll
it
say
has been in like the back seasons.
yeah, I'd say if there's, this is nitpicking, but again, if we're in the top 5, I mean, the yards per target, is about 8 the last 2 years on average. That's fine. I think Lamb's at like closer to like a little over 9. Um, you know, I guess Chase has missed a little bit of time,
Yeah,
but
Chase has missed some time. Burrow's missed some time.
right, you got a little more
So
but he didn't quite put together the year yet that Lamb put. Like
yeah,
180 targets versus 140 is like another order of magnitude. Like, how the hell did you cram in more without your efficiency going out the window? Um, so and yeah, and also the fact Chase's touchdowns have gone down the last 3 years. Um, I think both teams will score. I think both teams will get a lot of passing touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like if I had to bet on everything, targets, receptions, yards, touchdowns, I would take Lamb by a little, right?
yeah,
You're not
no,
giving me you're not giving me some odds or something.
I get it because they're both going to throw a ton. I mean, they both have
Yeah, I
no
like.
real run game, and actually, I think that adds to Chase because as much as they didn't run, they still had Mixon who kind of demanded carries and touchdowns.
Right.
Like nobody demands to touch the ball in Cincinnati right now. Like they're happy to when they get their chance right now in the backfield in
Yeah,
Cincinnati.
let's just say, I mean, the archetype is just fantastic. You have a clear WR1. You don't have a wide receiver 2 who feels like, I don't think Higgins is a 1B.
Right.
Um,
I know
for
some
all he
people
is,
do, but I don't either.
I mean, he's a great he's a better version of what Michael Gallup was in Dallas. A guy that, like, well, the main guy isn't open. I maybe could throw this guy open if I throw it up. He's good at, like, I felt like that one Higgins had like this one huge game last year, and you watch it, it's like he wasn't open on any of the plays. It was a one-on-one coverage, and he out jumps a guy, and it was just like, okay, yeah, that's the exact type I don't like in a week-to-week league, because it's like, yeah, no, I want guys that every time you watch, you're like, God damn it, they tried to put 2 on him, and he was still open by 2 steps.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't put huge numbers in the target separation efficiency, but if you
yeah,
do, T Higgins was 77th last year. That's not really ideal. And it's funny because out of college, I tend to like those guys because they look so dominant in college.
right.
But then when I see it in the pros, I go full like ick, and then I don't like I
Yeah,
hate that type.
it's weird. It's a metric I don't look at, but I feel like if I had to reduce everything I look at in terms of the metrics and what it amounts to, I put it on that I think we grew up with size being a thing for wide receivers, and now I think it's like it couldn't be more meaningless. Like, someone like AJ Brown is great, uh, and he's big, right? Like the size thing is just like fairly irrelevant. Like, I take AJ Brown over Devonta Smith, who are like the complete different body
Yeah.
types.
Just
And
couldn't be any different.
no, just right, because just, I mean, like, just based on historical things. Like the size isn't really a great indicator. We've seen so many guys that like the Higgins archetype, I'd say, is like he's a very good version of a subpar archetype for as we think about fantasy wide receivers. Where I think the guys we're talking about in the beginning are going to be all guys that are just like aren't crazy on size. I think, like I said, and AJ Brown's not really tall, right? It's just that he's thick.
I mean, he's pretty big. I think he's like 6'1", 6'2".
Okay. I mean, but yeah, so he's
But
certainly
he's not Julio Jones.
yeah, he's not Calvin Johnson, right? Like
Yeah.
it used to be like you'd think, oh, this 6'4" rangy guy. Like Higgins feels like he's like 6'3". I would have thought 6'3" or 6'4", but
yeah, he's 6'4". Higgins is a big dude.
Right. So basically, I'd say like anyone who's that tall, I'm like, nope, too tall.
All right, let's move on now to the next one. This one's a pretty big one. It's 10 spots. Chris Olave, you have him at 19. I have him at 9. Is it Rashid coming in? Is it Derek Carr being awful? Is it a bit of both? What's your thought on Chris Olave?
I mean, like, I have no strong opinion. I mean, I loved him out of college. I mean, granted, Ohio State is just like a wide receiver farm. I mean, everything looked. I mean, if I had to nitpick, because I mean, his targets went up last year over year. I mean, he pretty much was pretty consistent actually in kind of target rate, 24%. Which is good. I mean, his yards per target are fine, especially with the quarterback situation. I mean, 9 touchdowns in 2 years is not great. So that's all just going to boil into the projections. So, I mean, I have him at, 136 targets, which is kind of what he had last year, 90 receptions, 1,200 yards, 4.5 touchdowns. I'd say like looking at him versus everyone, he has I have a lower touchdown thing on him than everyone above him. So that would probably be the biggest thing I'm looking at. That if suddenly you told me he's going to get 10 touchdowns, and I could write that in, then he's where you have him. But partially it's that team. When you think about like how many passing touchdowns there's going to be, it's not a great offense. He's not the first guy they're obviously throwing to in the red zone. It's a big question mark on that offensive identity this year. Carmichael's been there forever. So even though Peyton left, it didn't feel like he left, especially with Taysom usage, right? So I don't know. It does feel like that team where it's like, oh, Olave catches it at the 4, and then you're like, no chance again. There's no way.
He'll never ever see.
He'll never see the ball again this drive. It's gonna be Taysom, maybe a Kamara, more likely like Carr, like throwing out the end zone and like looking at giving someone like a look.
Yeah.
So that's it. But I mean, basically change that situation. And like if you switched him and Lamb, I might have like Olave top 7.
Yeah.
I think it's I mean, I don't think anyone he's competing with there for targets is a big concern for me. Like I like having field stretchers. Like, I mean, I think Shaheed's kind of like, he's a field stretcher, and that's great for your WR1 doesn't need to be a field stretcher. I mean, Tyreek obviously is, but the normal Tyreek's such a freak, right? But generally it's like, man, get those guys running deep and then get the safeties out of the way, keep them honest, and take the other guy is my MO. So that would be the difference.
Your elite receivers do their best work at like 8 to 20 yards, not 30 yards downfield.
Yeah, have your 3 targets, get your 3 catches in a drive kind of thing.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, he made this huge gash of a play.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move off of Olave, and I guess for me, the reason he's high for me is the fact that there's not competition there, and just he's so good. I just feel like eventually he'll get a few more touchdowns. The yards just continue to go up. I just it feels like to move that offense forward, they're going to have to put the ball in his hands, and that's why he comes in above some others for me. But I completely understand. Again, he's in this group of wide receiver ones for their team, and
Right.
some of the difference is talent. Some of the difference is who's there behind them. It's just a little bit of mix here. Let's move to the next guy, which is Brandon Ayuk. You have it 10, so inside, he's in your top 10. He's ahead
Yeah.
of Debo. I have him down at 25, and I have Debo at 13. You love Brandon Ayuk here. I mean, I love him too, but I feel like he's capped in this offense.
I think that, yeah, I mean, there's some fairness to that. I mean, that's definitely what I'm going to have to, I might want to look at a bit more. I definitely have him higher snap. I basically have him higher in just about everything than Debo. I mean, he's been really efficient. Just taking a look at him last year.
Yeah, from a receiving side, yeah, he's going to get more receptions, probably more yards.
And the running thing, I'm giving Debo credit for the running thing. I mean, he's done. I mean, he's been. He had extreme efficiency last year. I mean, 12.8 yards per target's pretty insane. So I think I'm looking at it. Yeah, I probably have given him a few too many targets. And obviously all the word on the contract thing is not good. I don't see that as a plus. So yeah, he's probably something when that I need to bring down a bit. And I think it's brought down with maybe take that his target rate for last year. Probably hard to sustain on this offense. Especially because generally the they didn't really have a third wide receiver. Obviously you have Kittle there and McCaffrey getting a lot of stuff, but it could be that Pearsall has a bit of a bigger role. I bet no, it's not like it's not like Shanahan's averse to just basically shelving a rookie. So you got to deliver. Yeah, I mean, he could also feature. Like, I just think it's a meritocracy there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I could also see a situation where they sign a contract any day now, and then the sky's the limit for Ayuk. But you're right. I think I would hedge there in reality.
Yeah, his yards per target, his yards per reception, both last year were pretty crazy on Ayuk, and it definitely helped that Debo missed some time just in regards to his number of targets. But I mean, you kind of count on that from Debo to miss a little time as well.
Right.
Debo's touchdowns are really what hold him up above Ayuk for me, just because they get in the red zone and he's option 2 behind CMC, and that's ahead of George Kittle, who is a massive, size and speed difference for everybody. And Debo is still number 2 option behind CMC inside, especially inside like the 5.
But it's worth, so I'm looking at Debo, so it's kind of like fresh eyes. So yeah, the last 3 years he's had 200 to 300 rushing yards. And, even last year, 220 rushing yards, 5 rushing TDs. It's a lot of, and the year before, 232 rushing yards, 3 TDs. A lot of value. His passing numbers, his receiving numbers are just okay. I mean, I test, he's a yak monster, get all that stuff. But I mean, he's had 95 and 89 targets the last 2 years. I mean, he had 89 targets in 15 games last year. That's not remotely elite. Good efficiency. 7. But I mean, if you took out the running, this is like his profile is like a WR2, like a low WR2. I mean,
Yeah.
892 for 7 TDs. I guess my concern is like, I mean, you know, is he going to run? Like, do I really want to count on 3 to 5 touchdowns? That feels like it can go to 0 really quick.
See, I think 3 is the low end. He's been up to 8 rushing touchdowns in the last
Yeah.
3 years,
Well, I
and
mean, the
in
big,
2021
right,
in the
like a
massive
health.
season.
I mean, and they already, what is it? Mitchell's out for the year. I mean, I don't know what we have in Mason. I wouldn't be super shocked if somehow Jeff Wilson ends up back on this team. Um, I don't know about Jermichael Hasty. Trying to get all the McCaffrey cuffs, but yeah, Debo's really unique in that regard. Tyreek's unique just because insane amount of targets, insane amount of efficiency, and not a ton of snaps. Debo is like, okay, as long as you feel comfortable, this is the year he still gets 40, 200, 4 TDs on top of a WR2 profile. Because the reality is that, Ayuk is the better guy for getting open downfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ayuk's a better receiver if we're just talking about strictly lining up outside, one-on-one, like, go be a receiver. But Debo can do that. He can do rushing. He can do screens. Like, he does everything. And like, part of that receiving is an extension of the rushing, because even if they take some of the carries away, they're probably just going to turn into screens. Like, he's just going to get the ball in different ways.
I would
If he
think.
moved teams or they changed, if Shanahan wasn't the guy calling everything, I'd be more concerned because there's more turnover and everything's happening. But
Right.
like, Shanahan has his offense. He's run the same offense basically 2 years in a row. He trusts Brandon Ayuk, which is another reason I don't think they want to get rid of him. Is without trusting another wide receiver, they have to go back to Debo functioning as a true wide receiver one,
And
they're not really trying to do that.
No, I mean, it's a unique one. So yeah, I see it. I think I'd still lean Ayuk, but the gap will close for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to my Chicago Bears. You have DJ Moore at 15. I have DJ Moore at 15 because I love him and he's my boy. You have him at 28. Is this the target split? Is it pass attempts? Is it the Bears quarterback curse? Why do you hate DJ Moore so much?
No, I mean, I think it's just respect for bringing in Keenan Allen, and then Odunze being I like him a lot as well. I mean, DJ Moore has not been in a real wide receiver situation. He's had ever. I mean, so I do see them as a team that'll be pretty balanced. I don't think generally Chicago's a run heavy team. I think they'll be more balanced. I like Caleb Williams. It's just I think. I mean, last year DJ Moore did what he did with 29% of the targets and 90% of the snaps. I just don't see why you'd need that right now. Like, I don't think that's a success formula. I think you're using all 3 wide receivers, not equally, but I mean, so I'm looking at it. It's like I have him and Keenan Allen with pretty much even target shares, and Odunze like 3rd for sure. That just makes sense to me that they're working across all levels. So I just think he's so I'm definitely a fade on him for where he's going. And I think he's got one of those profiles that reads like extremely high floor consistency that we used to see from like maybe like I don't know, Brandon Cooks or something like that. And then when you break it down, you're like, I don't know if that's in 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 every environment that translates. I mean, the Cooks thing was different. I think it was in some elite offenses where you could support multiple. And this one, I think it's like, I think he has like a decent year. And then the other thing with DJ Moore is he has not been very good on the touchdowns either. Career wise, I don't have. I just somehow recall, was he always like 4 touchdowns? Wasn't that his thing?
In Carolina, yes, he was always 4. He had 7 his last year in Carolina. He had 8 last year in
Okay.
Chicago. So I mean, he's kind of broken away from being under 5 at least touchdowns. So yeah, I mean, I think my look here is just he's clearly the best receiver in the room. Keenan Allen is a great receiver. He in his prime,
he might be
probably just as good as DJ Moore. I don't think he's in his prime anymore.
And it's true that, I mean, Caleb Williams, I mean, it'll be an interest. Like he was extremely, let's just say, non-traditional in college in terms of risk tolerance, in terms of the types of throws he makes. So there is a scenario, and Keenan Allen, I think, appeals mostly to like a rule follower.
Yeah, a get the ball out in 2.5 second,
right?
Two step dropping out type of guy.
So yeah, so my feeling is that Caleb's going to be Caleb. So yeah, I could certainly see those scenarios where like Keenan Allen might be too old, and on a downslide might not be his cup of tea in terms of the targets, the way he wants to throw. I don't know, or he might be scrambling around for 10 seconds and DJ Moore has to take more breathers than he's used to.
Yeah, it's going to depend on how the tackles form out for the Bears because the inside of the line is pretty solid.
Yeah.
The outside of the line is absolutely horrendous. So if he has to run a lot, then Keenan may be out of luck. You know, I think if they can get the line together, then Keenan's going to be fine. He's going to have his role. But yeah, I think DJ Moore is the most talented, and he's kind of used to running with Fields. He's been running all over the place with everybody in Carolina. Adunze and Caleb seem to have a really good connection on especially that deep scramble ball. So I could definitely see Adunze having some games in like a best ball where he's going to be just massive. But I just feel like Keenan is kind of the piece that, you know, he's going to get his PPR games when they don't have a pass rush, but he's get phased out when they're facing pass rush a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at where I'm at versus consensus. I mean, I'm really below consensus on Adunze, and I'm even on Allen. So I guess I'm looking at this. This is one where, yeah, I think the market is more bullish on this situation than I am. Maybe, I mean, and the fact that you've got 3 potentially elite receivers, potentially, and yeah, and I'm not seeing maybe the volume.
I mean, it's very possible when you get that many good receivers on one team. You know, you don't see that, you know, 3-headed monster supported very often. Right. If it is, it's in like you said, like a Bengals, maybe a Chiefs pre-Pacheco.
This year, maybe with Houston.
Houston last year kind of did it, but that was also through one guy would pop for 5 games and get injured. Another guy would pop for 5 games, get injured. So hopefully that doesn't happen to Bears. I'm really praying, please, let's not go through injury after injury.
Right. So yeah, but I think we're probably in line with kind of how we split them up. I mean, I still have DJ Moore being more valuable than Allen, but I probably have it. I definitely have it closer than you do. Okay.
All right, let's move on to another one, and we're going to get into a few of the timeshares. We already started talking about it, but that's kind of what I think is splitting up some of these rankings. Let's talk about Stefon Diggs. You have him at 29. I have him at 18. So, I'm guessing you think he slots in as either a clear wide receiver 2, or that there's, just a big split amongst the receivers. We can talk about Nico Collins while we're here, since he's a 22 for both of us, but he's wide receiver 14 over the last week on NFFC. So clearly you and I are in the minority on Nico Collins, but let's talk about this passing game as a whole.
I mean, I think it's a really good passing game. I think they'll pass a lot. They did run they're not going to be maybe super extreme on the passing, but I like the game as a whole. If we're playing a league where it's just about Stroud's passing yards, I'm liking it a lot. I mean, I'm looking versus Fantasy Pros. I am lower than consensus on. I have all 3 wide receivers in the top 38. So first think about it.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Right. That is, now I have Dell 38th and Nico 29th and Diggs, where is he? 32nd. So I'm basically saying they all are slotting in between 29 and 38. But you'd say that's a generally elite passing offense if you could have 3 top 40 wide receivers. So I'm saying, I think they'll be on the field a lot. I had no concerns about WR4 and down. So I didn't see Noah Brown being anything this year for them, anything but like a emergency in case someone gets hurt. And they are very bullish about the team's health, evidently, given they cut him. So I don't, I think the way some people draft and rank, and that might be different than me, is say I think 2 of them are going to do really well. And I don't know who's going to get hurt or who's going to what's going to happen, but I want to make sure I'm on the right side of that bet. I'm just going to bet on the offense and the player. For something like Diggs and Collins, I mean, man, I don't know. I just don't see anyone getting that extreme amount of targets that I like to see. Diggs was that guy at the Bills. Certainly seemed to be like a bit of a downhill situation in the last year or two. And he's the new kid, where there's already chemistry with Collins and Dell. I think they neutralize each other a little bit. If I'm designing an offense, I certainly like this, having those 3 guys. But let's put it this way: in a couple, this is probably will last for another, this might be a 1-year only thing, given no team would pay to have these. The fact that they just drafted well with Dell, Collins will have to pay up for if they want a year or 2. We'll see. So do you see it as a Diggs number 1, Collins 2, Dell 3 situation?
I do. I think it's Diggs 1 here. I just think I think we're forgetting how ridiculously good Stefon Diggs is, especially when he's motivated, which he's motivated by money, and he's going to need a contract next season. So I think he's going to come out and I think he's going to be Stefon Diggs one last time for us. I have Nico Collins 5 spots behind him, so I'm not. I guess what I'm saying is it's Diggs and Collins 1A, 1B, and then there's a drop. I have Tank Dell somewhere past 40.
Okay.
And so I think he's the beneficiary of those 2 drawing so much coverage, but I don't think he gets the targets to really jump into a clear wide receiver 3 for me specifically. But that's how I'm looking at it, is it's really Diggs and Collins. And if a team decides to prioritize one, the other one is just going to beat the crap out of them. So right. I think they're both kind of going to get fairly even, and it's just going to be, again, I think it comes down to talent. I still think Diggs is better this year. I think that changes maybe as soon as next year, as Diggs enters his 30s. But I think for this year, that's the way I have them. I could certainly see Nico having the connection with Stroud. But again, to some extent, there wasn't a whole lot of other options to throw to in Houston, even though people popped up. Like they popped up out of a lack of necessity.
I think that's fair. Like I said, I see this one where you know, there'd be a probabilistic way of looking at it that says, you know, if one of these guys, like the three of them are not going to have excellent years, that there's no way that you could support three top 30 wide receivers, which is what the market's saying. It's almost like saying, well, I'm going to be right on two and horrible on the third, but being like negative in all three might be wrong on the two, and who cares? Some guys get hurt. It's a real unique situation. I could see go. Yeah, I just don't think that's not the way I like to play it. Like I'll pay full retail maybe for a guy in a situation where I don't think there's three premium wide receivers. Give me I want the good offenses, but I'd rather just have two guys I have to worry about. And if the third is like who did Philadelphia just trade for?
Dotson.
Right. Not where like that impacts nothing.
Yeah, it's not really going to change much. It might take a couple deep shots away from the group as a whole, but in theory, like those don't really change.
And
what's
exactly happening. It's that I mean, like, and generally, if Tank Dell was a rookie, I wouldn't be worried about him. It's just that he hit last year, like we all saw it.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't. So that's just a situation where I'm not going to pay what the market wants me to pay.
Yeah, and where he slots in, I think for you and for me, I think we have him in the same grouping again.
Yeah,
it's just a bunch of guys where you're like, do I want the maybe wide receiver 2 from a okay or a bad offense, or do I want the wide receiver 3 from what I'm pretty sure is a good offense? And you kind of are taking your shot on splitting hairs at that point. Like, do you want Jameson Williams, who has the talent? He should be the wide receiver 2, but maybe not. Like, there's definitely questions. Or do you take Tank Dell, who again is in a good offense, but he's clearly third? Like, I don't think there's a world where anybody thinks he's beating out Diggs and Nico without some kind of injury.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, when we talk about like Detroit, you could say, well, they have two premium targets too, but they have one's a tight end in Laporta. But the difference in my eyes gets into like there's going to be two wide receiver sets, and that's where Dell is going to get hurt. Like, he's probably not on the field for a lot of those, but he will be on for some of them. So that's where it's like all three kind of hurt each other a bit, with Dell probably the most. And I'm not as like Jameson Williams. I'm down on him too, versus market, but that's less of a, I don't know. That's maybe like, let's see it. I don't feel like he's. I'm not going to probably go out on a limb for his snaps, his targets.
Yeah.
And and it is tough when you're clearly the number 3 target on your team. Every time you're in the field, you are definitely number 3.
Yeah, and again, not to say anything of his talent. He's a good receiver. Just he's not as good as the two above him. Let's move over to the next guy, which is Christian Kirk. You have him at 15. Comes in at 31 for me. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, that seems wrong. I feel like I should have Christian Kirk higher. He's WR1, good offense. But then I look at my ranks and I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't want to move him above anybody, really. I don't know what
see
it is.
That. No. I see it. I see what you're saying. And yeah, it's weird. I mean, like looking at his numbers, he's only once been a top 15 play, and that was in 2022. I mean, last year he missed 5 games, and so he might have. Let's see what I have. Now hit per game last year. I had him at like 33. Now you're taking away Ridley, who, I mean, he definitely flashed in the beginning of the year. I think Ridley then he didn't really amount to what people thought he might be. I don't know. It's I don't like my ranking on this where the projections are coming out. I mean, I have Engram at a healthy thing. I think part of it is Gabe Davis is like the dream if you have the other wide receiver.
Right.
There's no reason to think Gabe Davis is going to get a ton of targets. And then you're bringing in a rookie, Brian Thomas. I just don't know. I don't see him being. He certainly doesn't seem to profile to me as a guy who's a high target rate. So like those changes feel. So I guess last year did they have Zay Jones as the third wide receiver? Like I feel like the room shifted in a way that helps Kirk. That makes me think he's going to get a good amount of targets. But I don't love it. And so it's just probably another thing where maybe I have to give Brian Thomas a little bit of more benefit of the doubt. Didn't help last year for his value. He only had 3 receiving touchdowns and he had 8 the year before. I will say his efficiency is really good though. I mean, given that has not been a great situation to be at 9.7, 8.2, then 9.3 in yards per target over 3 years. Granted, the first one was in Arizona. Yeah, I don't know. It's but I hear you. I feel too high. I'll have to look at that one a bit, but I do like him in general. I'd say like I'm definitely gonna be plus on him versus the market.
Yeah, and I understand why he's there. Again, good offense. He's the clear one. Brian, I mean, both the guys there seem like they're doing the same thing. Like Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas both feel like the same guy. So I'm not really sure
Right.
why you spend a first when you brought in Gabe Davis on a Gabe Davis type.
Right. I would have much rather seen instead of that either the free agent or the first guy is a really good route runner. Because I'm not convinced like Kirk is great at that.
I think Kirk's a slot guy. I think that's where he excels, which he's good at route running, but he's good at route running on the interior.
Right. Like that feels like a situation. I'd rather Keenan Allen on that team.
Yeah, I feel like Keenan Allen would be a great fit there.
And then
he can work the outside opposite.
Right. And then just get. I mean, I wouldn't wish Gabe Davis on you, but and to be unfair to, but let's just say but yeah, if you could swap Allen and Gabe Davis, I think it would make a little more sense to me. That would change things up where I like having that one guy that keeps the team honest. But I think Jacksonville's a little bit like my Giants, where it's like a little. I'd much rather have damn, these guys get open too much. Like I think like a Houston, that just seems like I don't know how you spread the ball around situation versus the other where it's like covered. Like, do I throw jump ball or do I dump it to Kirk or Engram? Like. That seems bad, but it could certainly be discounting Brian Thomas. It seems hard to think we're discounting on Gabe Davis, that suddenly he's something he's not.
I agree. I don't really get the Gabe Davis narrative other than people literally just taking the depth chart and that's all they're doing. But I just don't see it. Like they spent a first on a guy who's going to do the Gabe Davis role. If anything, I feel like Gabe Davis is just the backup to Brian, and they're going to find somebody else to run the outside, whether that's Duvernay, whether that's Tim Jones or Parker Washington. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of cuts coming in the next few days. I would not be surprised to see the Jags scoop up 2 or 3 receivers from the cuts that are happening. Like Tim Patrick needs to be in Jacksonville right now.
No, he's a similar type.
He is, but he's better than Gabe Davis. Like
they already signed him.
Move him.
That's a sunk. That's just some.
That's true. That's fair.
So
All
I
right.
think, yeah. So I think, yeah, so I think Kirk is in a really good situation. Yeah, it's that one's just going to be. It just doesn't feel right, and it's not
Yeah.
only. And it's good to know you think that because he
It
went to
just
A.
looks weird.
I don't
I
like
understand
Ag.
why it's there though. Like
He also went to A&M. I don't know. There's something that I don't like him, but
that's completely fair. Let's move on to another guy you apparently don't like, and that's Keon Coleman. Wide receiver 38 for me, wide receiver 54 for you. And part of that may be that I have Curtis Samuel at 60 and you have him at 47. So neither of us are really high on the Bills pass catchers, despite
no.
Josh Allen being ranked where he is. But like I guess we're a little different on Keon and Curtis here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at. I'm a little. I think I've always been a little high on Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman. He might be a little. Might have changed a little bit in my latest update, but yeah, I don't get the good vibes out of Keon Coleman yet. So not enough that for a rookie wide receiver. It's more the feels in terms of, but I don't remember. I thought some of his, like, he was a bit of a kind of a really good athlete, but didn't necessarily wasn't amazing route runner. Maybe what didn't command a ton of targets. I don't know. Where did he go to? Florida? No, that was
Keon Coleman,
Pearsall. Yeah,
yeah,
where did he go?
He was a Gator.
Okay.
Or no, sorry,
But
no. He was uh he is
South
Seminole.
Carolina.
Sorry,
Where was he?
he played in Michigan State and Florida State.
That's right. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I get this feeling like it's Buffalo would be great, but I mean it's just weird because they don't have he doesn't profile as a Diggs type. So I don't really know what the hell's going to happen in Buffalo, to be honest. I don't mind. I think I think it would be more likely. I mean, it sounds crazy, but like, yeah, Curtis Samuel just stays healthy. I think he'll actually be pretty decent. And I just don't know what to expect from Keon Coleman. I guess the one thing I remember, he wasn't very fast.
He's not overly fast. He's definitely more of the type that we talked about earlier. That is, you're gonna have to kind of just throw it, and I'm gonna be semi-open, and I'm just gonna grab it. But
Yeah, and I mean,
but Josh Allen feels like that guy. Like
it,
that feels very Josh Allen.
I mean, I'd feel better if we heard. I haven't heard any stories that like Keon Coleman is showing a great chemistry and everything like that. I kind of see it as just like an offense that's going to be just fine. It's just not going to, that this is a pretty big, I don't suddenly picture as being like the Dalton Kincaid show either. I just don't know.
Yeah, they're not going Kelsey part 2.0.
But I just don't picture right now. I don't picture a WR1 or WR2 coming out of this thing. And so I don't see the ceiling on Keon for this year. So yeah, a little bit low on him, but and yeah, I'll have to look. It could be one of those things with Curtis Samuel that he's generally been really efficient, but partially it's because he's been used more as a slot guy, WR3 guy.
Yeah, I mean, neither of us have either guy being more than a wide receiver 4, so
yeah,
we're not exactly going out on a limb here. It just seems like we're on opposite sides of it. I feel like we just know what Curtis Samuel is, and part of this ranking, I will admit, is just me being. We haven't seen Keon Coleman. We've seen a lot of Curtis Samuel. I'll take Keon Coleman based off of what we've seen of Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll have to look up Curtis Samuel and see if I
He's
agree
fun.
there.
He's just not really that good at anything. He's an athletic, fast guy who can do stuff in the open field, but like getting to the open field, not so good at that. But yeah, we'll see what goes on there. Let's move over to
that's
Detroit. Detroit, Jameson Williams, I have at 40. You have at 63. And then we also have a very large gap in our Khalif Raymond ranks. There's such a large gap. I actually adjusted mine a little bit, but there's still a very large gap between our ranks there. I think Khalif Raymond is just kind of an afterthought in the offense, but your ranking of him definitely made me look at the depth chart and make some adjustments. But it seems like you're thinking he's going to have more than just the sporadic catch here or there. It seems like you're factoring him into this offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I'm sure like last year they had Reynolds on this. They really had a weird situation where they didn't have a real wide receiver 2, 3. I mean, it's so you had guys like Reynolds, Raymond. I feel like other guys flash. I mean, right now, yeah. I mean, I guess I'm profiling it that I'm probably, I feel like I've given Jameson a good amount of snaps. I'm giving him 75% of snaps. It could be that I'm a little high on Raymond. I've got to take him down a little bit. I don't know. I'm gonna have to read some of the beat reporting there, because I don't see what to get excited about in that room. I think part of it is that it's like I've got 2 other wide receivers on the depth chart, and I have to look. Isaiah Williams and Traquan Smith. Oh no, I've already got Traquan Smith is out for the year.
Yep, they're gone. They did sign Tim Patrick.
When did that happen?
They signed DPJ.
Oh, well,
DPJ is not good.
No.
But Tim Patrick could.
He could.
Unfortunately, hurt Jameson Williams' role a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, that seems like a really good landing spot for Tim Patrick, because they don't have anyone with his skill set. So yeah, I think that's one that this screamed like they're gonna add someone after cuts. So I think it'll be that on my thing, Patrick will cut a lot into Raymond. So now you've got what's more of a rotating WR3, which it could be both of them only playing like 30-40% of snaps. But if you think about it, it's like, yep, I could see Patrick coming in probably for a little more valuable. I could see him being a red zone, a guy that you're considering for there. And yeah, so that'll explain. So Raymond will go down. I think it was more like I have so many targets to do. And I think part of it's saying that I haven't seen anything, or my formulas haven't seen anything that makes me think Jameson Williams is going to get a ton of targets. So the stats just don't line up, I think. But I don't know. I mean, he came out great. Yeah, I've got him at really boring numbers: 48 receptions, 660 receiving yards, 3 TDs. How unfair is that?
I mean, it's not unfair based off of the previous seasons. I feel like, what I'm looking at here is the talent of the receiver and,
right.
The obvious open position of wide receiver 2.
Right.
And the fact that the Lions didn't go out and get anybody makes me feel a little bit better about it as well, because they didn't think that somebody in the room could be there. I feel like they would have done something about it.
Yeah. I mean, looking at his game logs last year is really a nothing burger. So it could be that, the market's I should be giving him a little bit more benefit of the doubt. But really not much to see here. And there was no competition for WR2 there.
Yeah, I mean, he makes some great catches, and that's why, I mean, again, he's so talented. So we're just waiting to see it. That's That's
Yeah.
it. But I completely understand where if you're going off of what he's done and what the numbers look like, it's not good because
Right.
he didn't really run routes when he came out. He's
Right.
just an athlete. Like
Yeah.
he's just 6'1", 180. He's fast. He can jump out the building.
Yeah. I think it's just tough being like at best target 3 option on a team that's also going to run a lot. Yeah, it's tough to like it feels like that's pretty. It feels like you need St. Brown needs to go down for a Jameson Williams ceiling to be there, but there's enough for a floor, and
Yeah.
I liked him out of college and first round pick.
Yeah, I
So
think there's a floor and there's also, some upside there. So just given the talent. So that's why I have him where I
yeah,
do. But I understand they haven't really supported a WR2.
right.
History says it's probably not going to happen again this season, but that's what I'm thinking, at least with my ranking. Let's move on over to Cortland Sutton, who you have at 32. I have at 52. I just do not like Sutton or this offense in the air at all.
Well,
I know.
weren't you like a Jerry Judy stan? Am I remember?
I
Okay.
still am as much as you can be. I don't. I know Bo Nix has looked good. I don't know if that carries over. I'm not big Josh Reynolds guy. I know that some people like him. And I
Yeah,
think Cortland Sutton is again one of those guys who doesn't get open. You just have to throw it and hope for the best. And the drop off for those guys comes quickly. And with a rookie
yeah,
quarterback told not to turn the ball over, I just worry that there's going to be a few too many passes that don't make it in the air towards him.
yeah. No, I mean, I think you're totally right on the archetype. He fits what we were saying earlier about tall guy doesn't get the separation. Um, you know, trying to see what he did looking at what he did last year. I
I
mean,
mean, it's not
numbers.
impressive.
No, I mean it was such a bad. So yeah, I think it's just more kind of the assumption that it's a vacuum and he's going to play. Um, so yeah, I mean he for whatever it was in that offense, he had a decent sized role. It faded after week 15. I don't know if he was hurt or what.
Yeah, he was a little banged up at the end of the season, and they were also going
Yeah,
through
but
the whole rest debacle at the end of the
right,
season. So there was a lot going on.
but
Denver to wrap it up.
yeah, it's just I mean, so yeah, I mean, is there a scenario where because we know Sean Payton marches to the beat of his own thing and has had generally good passing situations. So yeah, the move to Knicks definitely hurts Sutton. Um, could I imagine something where Sutton rotates is more in a rotation with Franklin, Mims, and Reynolds, and it's a lot of quick hits because we saw Knicks didn't was not a low ADOT guy last year. Massive completion percentage. But it was a really like it was a very Sean Payton like kind of thing, like toward the end of Breeze's career. Um, yeah, I really don't like the floor on Sutton. And so that might influence me a bit now that you're saying it to like cap Sutton more for this scenario where they just kind of have younger, quicker guys running short routes, trying to and just playing like control or game manager ball with Knicks because that seems like the only viable scenario.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree. I don't think he's gonna be chucking around the yard. I don't.
I mean, now what have you heard on? I mean, we know what Reynolds is, right? But Mims last year was disappointing. I think people expected a bit more. And Franklin, comes in. He went same school. He went to Oregon too, so he has that connection with Knicks. Has there been any buzz on Mims and Franklin in preseason?
Franklin has definitely got a little bit of buzz. Just the team connection and them being, together. So there's definitely a little bit of buzz there with those two. I thought Franklin popped like in college. It was just as inconsistent as you could possibly be. I think he has all the tools that you would need.
Right.
It's just is he going to get it right in between the ears? Devon Vele is also there. He's one of the guys who like the measurables are pretty good. You can like squint and find the Puka Nakua like, oh yeah, he hits these kind of measurables and he kind of has these stats but I really haven't heard a lot about Vele out of camp. It's mostly been Franklin. I think he comes for the 2 role at some point, if not even the 1 role, because Cortland Sutton's trash. But I don't like this offense. It looks really bad.
Yeah,
it looks like an offense the Bears would put together for a quarterback before Caleb
it
Williams.
does, and of course they still. And I didn't check if Lil Jordan Humphrey made the roster because didn't he go there because Peyton likes him.
Oh, I don't know if he actually. I know he's there, but I don't think he made the roster.
Yeah,
he's on the
he disappeared.
Practice, maybe.
He disappeared from my projections. I was wondering what the hell happened. So that's yeah. No, I would see this as a situation where I wouldn't mind. I'd see it more as I wouldn't mind a cheap share of Mims or Franklin in hopes that they end up being like a co-WR1 on this team, which I would say would equate more to like a low, maybe a WR4 in fantasy. Like it's hard to picture. So I like your thinking on Sutton fade, I guess I would say. And that's conversely, it's like, yeah, who knows? Knicks could find chemistry with Mims or Franklin. That wouldn't be out of the ordinary, but pretty low ceilings.
Yeah,
we're talking about
none
here.
of these guys are going to cost a lot. Nobody really likes this offense. I guess I'd just rather take my shot on any of the other guys. I know Sutton is there, but like we've seen him, he's getting worse and worse. He's just going to get slower. That's what that type does.
Right. We know. And he's not, and that type just hasn't succeeded in a Peyton offense.
Yeah. So give me Mims, who is fast as hell. Give me Franklin, who again has flashed greatness, just flashes. Or give me even Vele to some extent, because
I don't know.
Again, he's super athletic. He's not going to be a Sutton type, so I'm not going to get stuck in that mold again. It doesn't feel. I feel like Sutton's getting traded late in the year when they're terrible.
Yeah. No, that reads.
All right. As I mentioned off the top, there's a bunch that fit in like 5 to 8 differences between us. I didn't think there were big enough differences to really bring up, but as I'm looking at the names, there's like Drake London, Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel, who we talked about, Puka Nakua, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, Terry McLaurin, George Pickens, Devontae Smith. Anybody in particular that you feel strongly about that you want to talk about, or is this all kind of falling in those groupings we're talking about? And again, 5 to 8 is kind of groupings.
Yeah. I'm surprised Drake London is kind of consensus WR10. So then do you have I have him at 16. Where do you I
have him at 10.
Okay. So we just haven't seen him command those level of targets. So I feel like I'm pretty generous in my projection for him. I'm just remembering it wrong. Yeah, I mean,
So
I
the
get you're moving to Cousins. There's just yeah. So I don't feel super comfortable projecting him to be something that he hasn't shown yet. I guess I would say. Um, but I
That's
get,
fair. They're not having
and he's
Arthur Smith in
6'4".
the office helps a lot as well.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I'm happy. I'm enthusiastic for Bijan. I think it's a weird thing because this is going to be now a McVay you got a McVay coordinator going
Mhm.
there, and that one typically is looking for a guy to just pelt with the ball. I, last I checked, none of those Rams guys was 6'4" that got all those targets. So it's a weird wide receiver room for that type of team that like so I I don't mind like taking like it feel like a crazy flyer on your old boy Mooney.
Yeah,
Um,
I like him too.
but I like I said, I don't like other than Bijan, I don't know what to and maybe a slight amount of optimism for Pitts, maybe. I don't know. So I think I have like WR16 is definitely something. But yeah, I don't like him at ADP. Um, I don't know what to do with like Cup. I think it's partially the feeling that Puka and Cup um, neutralize each other enough that neither of them hit their peak target numbers of previous years. Um, and generally aren't guys I want because of that. Um, and Cup, the concern I think on age and injuries and stuff like that. Um, try to see if I have a. We talked on Debo. Am I higher on Evans than you, or you're higher than me?
I'm higher than you are on Evans.
Yeah, I think I'm more kind of. I like him. I like that offense. I think I'm just higher on Godwin, and that kind of
Yeah.
takes from Evans. Not that I'm just higher on Godwin than the market, not necessarily higher than Godwin than on Evans. I don't know what to do with McLaurin and Pickens, um, given that I mean, really not a lot of competition for targets in both. Um, but it's that weird thing where like it's one thing to lead your team in targets and one thing to like be like do it with like extreme target shares. And McLaurin just has never done it. Um, I mean, maybe the quarterback upgrade helps. So I forget, am I higher or lower than you on McLaurin and Pickens?
So on McLaurin, I am higher, and on Pickens, you are higher.
Okay. Makes
So
sense.
I
Yeah.
like McLaurin just because I feel like even with the quarterback changes, and he's gone through so many quarterback changes, he just does his thing every year, which is 1,005, and you can pretty much just write him down for that. Like there's part of his ranking is just I'm removing all thought from it, and I'm just going 1,005, 75 to 80 receptions. I'm just penciling that in. That's easy money. Like, why overthink it and move somebody below him that might put up 75 and 1,000?
Right. Yeah. I think that part's fair. Um, yeah, it seems like I'm about even on the market for McLaurin, but I like it if maybe your WR1 or WR2 have are very spike heavy. Um, and I probably would rather yeah, it's tough seeing like Amari Cooper there. I have him at 24 ahead, and I feel like so if it came down to drafting and it was Amari Cooper or McLaren, I don't know how you just not run for the hills for that Cleveland situation. So I mean, like because yeah, these do get into the coin flip things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see that Pickens. I don't know. I mean, we just heard Wilson's the guy. I guess that's just a feeling that we don't quite know what Pickens is. But I kind of feel like we know. Yeah. I don't think I don't like the fact I'm ahead of the market on Pickens. I feel like every guy, like similar with Sutton, that's not the type I want to generally be at or below market on the kind of guys that I have concerns about them being their separation rate.
Yeah. Yeah, especially since Russ has lost. Well, we don't know what Russ is going to look like. So there's a lot of questions with both of those guys, I think. But we're bumping up against, going long here, Rudy. And I got to get going to a Green Day concert. So why don't you give the people some names that you like late?
Oh, man. Okay, let me look quickly. I don't.
All right, I'll give some names while you're
you
looking.
Do that.
I like Xavier Legette. I feel like there's a real chance in that offense that he can step into a meaningful role. I like Khalil Shakir. Again, we've talked about that offense and just kind of who in Buffalo steps up. And as long as we're throwing darts, I really don't mind Khalil Shakir. Specifically in best ball, I like Quentin Johnston, and I know what everybody's saying. Like, he can't catch the ball. They were ultimately trying to maybe trade him or find a way to not have him on the roster. But he's on the roster. They don't have a ton of options in LA to throw to other than him. So I think just the talent is going to win out. He's going to catch some deep balls. He's going to drop some too. But if he can just figure out the drops, which we've seen players figure that out, especially deep ball guys, they'll figure it out as they get more reps against pros. So I kind of like a Quentin Johnston bounce back. Treylon Burks is another. He fits kind of the same mold of guys we've been talking about, but like he's free versus having to pay up for a Cortland Sutton, where they both feel like maybe de facto wide receiver ones, even potentially, or wide receiver twos. Like I don't know. It feels like Treylon Burks could be worth a little bit. Obviously Titans have more competition, but I don't know that their competition is going to stay healthy all season either.
Yeah, there's some deep guys. I'm looking through mine. I mean, the one guy that jumps out to me, this is more of a high floor play, is Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he could go easily over 100 targets on that team because I do think they're going to pass a lot. And I see it as that you've got, I think the routes he runs, he doesn't have a lot of competition for. So he started picking up toward end of last year. I think they had a glut of him with Paris Campbell and Shepard on that roster. Now they've done the opposite. They've got pretty much guys that are more field stretching. I mean, a super deep one would be Jordan Whittington, who I saw a lot of at Texas. That's kind of like if Puka or Kupp goes down, he could be that type of guy. He wouldn't function well in most offenses. He was, but the way they run the routes there, I think he could be really. He could plug in there surprisingly well. Not going through my list, I'm not seeing anyone else like super jumping off versus looking at others. I'm sure there's a few that you circled on the thing. Wow, I can't believe. Am I wrong? Is the Pittsburgh WR2 going to really be Van Jefferson?
Oh yeah, I did mean to bring that one up a little bit just because I don't know that it's Van Jefferson. That feels. I think it is. I think Calvin Austin's running out of the slot, and
I mean, you could see like it's almost like I don't know how you.
It could be Roman Wilson. They spent a third on him, but like
right,
a third at receiver is not the same as a third at other positions. Like running back at a third, like maybe there's some juice there. A wide receiver in the third is like he can get a look, but there's no guarantees.
Yeah. No, I think that is the word. Yeah, that I can't. I mean, maybe. No, I can't. I mean, like that situation's. I can't imagine recommending anyone in that situation. You saying Burks? Tennessee, I don't like as a situation.
No, I don't like it either.
Yeah. I mean, Curtis Samuel's probably. You know, it would be fun to play at the Buffalo stuff. So you said Shakir. I think that
Yes.
yeah, I mean, at the price that you're going for there, it's going to be a streaky type, be more best ball. But
I
yeah,
think he could end up the wide receiver 2 there. Maybe even the wide receiver
I
1.
mean, it is wide. I mean, like it's crazy for a peak Hall of Fame quarterback to have that bad of a group or that unknown.
Yeah, so many
So
unknowns. Like Brady had crap receivers, but he knew them. Like
right. So I like taking a cheap shot. I mean on in that one. And then yeah, no, it's listen, I do find it tough on the wide receivers. I mean, I also generally like on the green. I mean, with Green Bay, I mean maybe like a Wicks. I don't
mhm.
think I've definitely had like Watson. You know, maybe more than my projections would suggest. Um, but I like that offense, and I just don't. I don't think there's anyone there that is guaranteed for. We just don't know who the WR1 is there. I don't think it's Dobes. I don't think it's Jaden Reed. Like it could be, but I just don't feel comfortable on that. And Watson is, so yeah, even get it like so. I don't mind taking a cheap shot at their 4 or 5, hoping they can have a bigger role somehow.
Yeah, I don't either. I feel like as much as you'll hear people say they know what the order is in Green Bay, it does feel rather open. I think Jaden Reed is the one. He looked the best for the longest. But
Right.
the fact that everybody was in and out of that wide receiver room all year, I don't feel nearly as strongly. And also in your drafts, sometimes that can lead to a value on Green Bay, especially if like I got Jordan Love and Scott Fishbowl, and I ended up grabbing a couple Green Bay receivers to stack with them just because they were sitting around, and I didn't think they
Yeah.
should be anymore.
Right. No, and I mean it happens with their tight ends too.
Yeah, I mean nobody wants their tight ends, and I think whoever gets their job, either one could be useful. I think Tuck Kraft is a better receiver at the moment. I think as far as blocking goes, he can't really. I don't think either of them is a great blocker. So
Right.
Musgrave or Tucker, but yeah, I think both that whole offense is a little bit. We all think it's gonna be good, but I don't know that we all know where it's all coming from. A little clarity in the running back situation, as we mentioned off the top, but yeah, it's gonna be a little weird. But yeah, let's wrap up there, Rudy.
Yep.
We're plenty long here. If you have specific questions as draft weekend comes up, find us on Twitter. I'm at RazBeaton. Rudy is of course, at Rudy Gamble. You can find us on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy or on Razzball.com and ask us questions there. Until next week, Rudy, happy drafting, and I'll talk to you then.
Sounds good.